The trenches of the First World War were a landscape of industrialized death, a place of mud, steel, and unimaginable human suffering. It was a world that seemed designed to crush the spirit of any living thing. Yet, in the heart of this grim reality, a small, brindle-colored dog of uncertain breed, a stray who wandered onto a military training field, would become one of the most unlikely and celebrated heroes of the entire conflict. He had no formal military training. He held no official rank, but he would serve in 17 major battles, survive being gassed and wounded by a grenade, capture a German spy, and save his entire regiment from a surprise chemical attack. He would become the first dog ever to be promoted to the rank of sergeant in the U.S. Army. His name was Stubby. This is the incredible true story of the stray who became a soldier and a legend, a testament to the profound bond that can exist between man and dog, even in the very heart of hell. Our story begins not in the bloody fields of France, but on the campus of Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut, in the summer of 1917. The United States had recently entered the war, and the Yale campus was being used as a training ground for the 102nd Infantry Regiment, part of the 26th Yankee Division. It was here that a young soldier, Private J. Robert Conroy, found a stray puppy wandering around the training drills. The dog was a brindle bull terrier mix with a short, stubby tail, which is how he got his name. Stubby was a dog of immense character. He was friendly, intelligent, and quickly made himself the unofficial mascot of the 102nd Regiment. He learned the bugle calls, he could perform a modified salute by raising his right paw to his eyebrow, and he participated in the daily marches and drills. Much to the amusement of the soldiers, Private Conroy became his inseparable companion. For the young soldiers, many of whom were away from home for the first time and facing the terrifying prospect of war, Stubby was a connection to a gentler, saner world. He was a source of comfort, a distraction from their fears. When the time came for the 102nd to ship out to France, Private Conroy could not bear the thought of leaving his friend behind. In a clear violation of military regulations, which forbade animals on troop transports, Conroy smuggled Stubby on board the ship, hiding him in a large overcoat. He kept the dog hidden in the ship's coal bin for much of the voyage, but eventually Stubby was discovered by Conroy's commanding officer. The story goes that when the CO confronted Conroy, Stubby, as if sensing the gravity of the situation, immediately sat up and gave his signature salute. The commanding officer, a battle-hardened man, was so charmed and amused by this display of canine discipline that he relented. He told Conroy that Stubby could stay. The dog had officially won his passage to war. Upon arriving in France, Stubby and the 102nd Infantry were thrown into the brutal reality of trench warfare. The conditions were horrific, but Stubby, a creature of instinct and resilience, adapted. He had been born a stray, and the survival skills he learned on the streets served him well in the trenches. He quickly grew accustomed to the deafening roar of artillery and the crack of machine gun fire. He learned to navigate the labyrinthine network of trenches, and his low profile made him less of a target than his human companions. It was here, in the mud and the chaos, that Stubby began to demonstrate his extraordinary abilities. His hearing was far more sensitive than a human's. He could hear the faint, high-pitched whine of incoming artillery shells long before the soldiers could. When he heard a shell coming, he would begin to bark and run for cover, giving the men a precious few seconds of warning to dive into their dugouts. This early warning system undoubtedly saved many lives, but his most important contribution came from his sense of smell. The First World War was the first conflict to see the widespread use of poison gas, one of its most terrifying and insidious weapons. Mustard gas and chlorine gas would drift silently across no man's land and sink into the trenches, causing horrific burns, blindness, and a slow, agonizing death by suffocation. Stubby's sensitive nose could detect the faint, unnatural smell of the gas long before the soldiers could. One morning, while most of the regiment was asleep, a German gas attack was launched. The gas began to creep silently into the trenches. Stubby, smelling the danger, began to run frantically up and down the trench line, barking ferociously and nipping at the sleeping soldiers. He roused the entire company, waking them up in time for them to put on their gas masks and sound the alarm. AID single-handedly saved his regiment from being wiped out in their sleep. After this incident, Stubby became an invaluable part of their defense. He was given a specially designed gas mask, though he reportedly hated wearing it, and he was trusted implicitly. When Stubby barked, the men of the 102nd listened. His bravery was not limited to defense. He became a vital part of the regiment's operations. The trenches and the battlefield were a chaotic maze, and soldiers frequently became wounded and lost in no man's land. Stubby seemed to have an uncanny ability to find wounded American soldiers. He would roam the battlefield after an attack, listening for the cries of the wounded. When he found an injured man, he would stay with him, barking until paramedics arrived. If the man was unconscious, Stubby would lick his face to try and revive him. It's impossible to know how many men he located who might have otherwise bled to death in a shell crater, but the soldiers of his unit credited him with saving dozens. He also became an accomplished messenger. In the chaos of an attack, telephone lines were often cut, and human runners were easy targets for snipers. Stubby, being a small and fast target, was much more reliable. A message would be placed in a canister attached to his collar, and he would be given the direction of the command post he needed to find. He would race through the trenches and across the open battlefield, dodging bullets and explosions, to deliver his vital messages. Stubby's most famous act of aggression came during the Muzargan Offensive, one of the final and bloodiest campaigns of the war. One day, while on patrol with his unit, Stubby detected a sound in the nearby bushes. He ran off to investigate and found a German soldier, who was likely an infiltrator or a spy trying to map the Allied trench layout. The German soldier tried to call the dog to him, but Stubby, recognizing from the uniform and the language that this was not a friendly, began to circle the man, barking furiously. When the German tried to run, Stubby launched himself at him, biting and holding onto the man's leg. He held on with the tenacity of a bulldog, refusing to let go, his barks echoing across the battlefield. The commotion alerted nearby American soldiers, who rushed to the scene and captured the German spy. For this incredible act of capturing an enemy combatant by himself, the commander of the 102nd Infantry recommended that Stubby be promoted to the rank of sergeant. It was an unprecedented honor, making Sergeant Stubby the first and only dog to be officially promoted in the U.S. Army through combat. Like any soldier, Stubby did not escape the war unscathed. During one assault, he was caught in a grenade explosion. He was hit in the chest and leg by shrapnel and had to be evacuated to a field hospital. His wounds were serious, but he recovered. His presence at the hospital had an unexpected effect. As he was being nursed back to health, his cheerful demeanor and resilience lifted the spirits of the other wounded soldiers. He would visit the men, performing his salute and comforting those who were suffering. He had become a therapy dog before the term even existed. After a few weeks of recovery, Sergeant Stubby was sent back to the front lines, rejoining his beloved 102nd Regiment for the final push of the war. By the time the armistice was signed on November 11, 1918, Stubby had served for 18 months, participated in 17 major battles, and had become a living legend among the American Expeditionary Forces. When the war ended, Private Conroy once again smuggled his heroic dog home. But this time Stubby was not an unknown stray. He was a national hero. His story had been told in newspapers across the country. He led parades, he was featured in magazines, and he was showered with medals and honors. He was given a special medal for heroism by the Humane Education Society, which was presented to him by General John J. Pershing, the commander of all American forces in Europe. He visited the White House and met 3 different American presidents: Woodrow Wilson, Warren G. Harding, and Calvin Coolidge. He became the official mascot of Georgetown University, where Robert Conroy went to study law after the war. At the halftime shows of the Georgetown football games, Stubby would be brought out onto the field, where he would push the ball around to the delight of the crowd. He lived a long and celebrated life, a beloved public figure, and a symbol of the courage and loyalty of the American doughboy. Sergeant Stubby passed away in his sleep in one. He was not just a mascot, he was a soldier. He was a hero who faced the same dangers as his human companions and served with unwavering loyalty and courage. His story is a powerful ember from the Great War, a reminder that heroism can come in the most unexpected of packages, in a conflict defined by its inhumanity. The story of this little stray dog who became a sergeant reminds us of the profound and enduring power of companionship, loyalty, and the simple, unconditional love of a very good boy.